The boy who danced with the ball, he was called the next Pelé. The boy with feet so magical they defied physics. The smile that lit up stadiums across 3 continents. He danced past defenders like they were ghosts, scored goals that made the world stop and stare, and carried the hopes of an entire nation on his shoulders. But talent alone doesn't guarantee a happy ending. And Robinho de Souza's story, from the slums of São Vicente to the heights of European glory to a prison sentence that destroyed everything, is proof that sometimes the fall is faster than the rise. This is the story nobody wants to tell, the one where the hero becomes the villain, where magic turns to tragedy, where a legend becomes a warning. São Vicente, 1988, where dreams are born in dirt. São Vicente, a coastal city in São Paulo state, Brazil. Beautiful beaches for tourists, crushing poverty for locals, the kind of place where children grow up too fast, because childhood is a luxury reserved for people with options. In the favelas, the sprawling slums that cling to hillsides like desperate fingers, life is negotiated daily. Food, safety, hope, nothing is guaranteed. Everything is fought for. This is where Robinho de Souza, who the world would know as Robinho, took his first breath in 1984. His family had nothing. His father, Gilvan, worked odd jobs, whatever paid, whenever work existed. His mother, Marina, cleaned houses for wealthy families who never learned her name. They lived in a small house with walls so thin you could hear neighbors breathing. No luxuries, no backup plan, just survival. But they had something that money couldn't buy, a football, a worn, half-deflated ball that had seen better days. But in the hands, or rather the feet, of young Robinho, it became magic. The streets, his first stadium, 4 years old. Robinho couldn't read yet, couldn't write, but he could do something that seemed supernatural. He could make a football obey. The favela streets were his training ground. Broken pavement, uneven surfaces, obstacles everywhere. Most kids would struggle. Robinho danced. He'd dribble around rocks, nutmeg other children, do tricks that kids twice his age couldn't master. And he'd do it all with a smile that suggested he wasn't even trying. Like the ball was an extension of his body. Like gravity was optional. Other kids would get frustrated when they lost possession. Robinho would laugh. To him, football wasn't about winning. It was about joy, about freedom, about being somewhere else, anywhere else, than the poverty that surrounded him. His father noticed. Not just the skill, the obsession. Robinho would play from sunrise until the streetlights came on, would skip meals to get more time with the ball, would practice the same trick 100 times until it was perfect. "You're going to be someone," Gilvan told him one night. "You're going to get us out of here." Robinho was 6 years old. He didn't understand the weight of that statement, didn't know his father had just placed the family's entire future on his small shoulders. He just nodded and went back to playing. The kidnapping. When hope turns to terror, success breeds attention. And in the favelas, attention can be deadly. By age 13, Robinho was already known. Not just in São Vicente, throughout the region. This kid who could do things with a football that seemed impossible. Who was destined for something bigger. Santos FC, one of Brazil's most prestigious clubs, had noticed. They wanted to sign him, to bring him into their youth academy, to develop him into the next great Brazilian player. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. The door out of poverty. But doors swing both ways. One afternoon in 1997, Robinho's father was kidnapped, grabbed off the street by criminals who knew the family was about to have money, who saw opportunity in desperation. The ransom, everything Robinho would earn, every cent from his future football contract. Robinho was 13 years old. He'd just been given a chance to save his family. And now criminals were threatening to destroy it and his father unless he gave it all away. For weeks, the family lived in terror. Would Gilvan come home? Would they ever be safe? Was the dream of escape just another cruel joke the favelas played on people who dared to hope? The police eventually found Gilvan, rescued him. The kidnappers were arrested, but the trauma remained. Robinho learned a lesson that would shape everything that followed. Success doesn't erase where you come from, and the world is full of people ready to take what you've earned. He signed with Santos FC, but the innocence was gone. Football was no longer just joy. It was survival. It was revenge against a world that had tried to break him. Santos FC, where legends are made, walking into Santos FC's academy was like stepping into history. This was where Pelé had played, where the greatest player ever had worn the black and white stripes, where Brazilian football royalty was created, and now, at 14 years old, Robinho was being asked to follow in those impossible footsteps. The pressure would have crushed most kids. Robinho thrived on it. His style was pure Brazilian street football refined into art. Quick feet, impossible balance, the ability to change direction mid-stride like he was rewriting physics. He didn't just beat defenders, he humiliated them, made them look like they were playing a different sport. But more than technique, he had something rare: charisma. That smile, the joy he played with, the way he celebrated like every goal was the first goal he'd ever scored. Fans didn't just admire Robinho, they loved him. By 16, he was training with the senior team. By 17, he was starting. By 18, he was the most exciting young player in Brazilian football. The comparisons to Pelé were inevitable and dangerous, because Pelé wasn't just a player, he was a god. And gods don't have successors, they have pretenders. He's good, Pelé himself said in an interview, but let's see if he can handle pressure. Robinho heard those words, internalized them, used them as fuel. He'd show everyone. He'd prove he wasn't just good. He was destined for greatness. 2002. The year everything changed, 18 years old. Robinho's first full season with Santos's senior team, he didn't just play well. He dominated, scored goals that made highlight reels, performed tricks that got replayed on loop, drew crowds that hadn't come to the stadium in years. Santos FC, a club that had been struggling, suddenly mattered again. Because of this kid from the favelas who played like football was a dance, European scouts started appearing. Representatives from Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United, the biggest clubs in the world, all wanting the same thing, Robinho. But Santos didn't want to sell. Not yet. They'd found their golden goose, their next Pelé. Why give that away? So they kept him, made him their talisman, built the team around him, and Robinho delivered. In 2002, he helped Santos win the Campeonato Brasileiro, the Brazilian championship. Their first title in nearly 2 decades. He was 19 years old, already a hero, already carrying the weight of a club, a city, a legacy, but Brazil is too small for players this talented. Europe always calls, and eventually everyone answers. 2005, the Real Madrid dream. The call came in summer 2005. Real Madrid, Los Blancos. The biggest club in the world. They wanted Robinho, not as a prospect, as a Galáctico, the final piece in their collection of superstars. Ronaldo, Zidane, Beckham, Figo, and now Robinho. The transfer fee, $24 million, an enormous sum for a 21-year-old from Brazil. Robinho stood in the Santiago Bernabeu for his presentation. 80,000 seats, history in every corner, fans chanting his name. He held up the white jersey, number 10, the number Figo had worn. A sacred number in football. I'm here to make history, he told the press, that smile lighting up his face, that confidence that comes from never experiencing failure. He had no idea how cruel history could be. Madrid, the reality. Czech playing for Real Madrid isn't like playing anywhere else. The expectations don't just exceed reality, they defy it. Every match is scrutinized, every touch analyzed, every mistake becomes a crisis. The Madrid press doesn't just report on football. They create narratives, heroes and villains, kings and failures. Robinho's first season was solid, not spectacular. 8 goals in La Liga, some brilliant moments, some forgettable games. The Spanish media didn't know what to make of him. He was talented, undeniably. But was he Galáctico level? Was he worth the money? The comparisons to Ronaldinho started. The Brazilian who'd gone to Barcelona instead of Madrid. The player who was currently the best in the world. The one who danced past defenders the way Robinho was supposed to. Robinho is good, journalists wrote. But is he Ronaldinho? No. Every article chipped away at his confidence. Every comparison felt like an insult. He'd escaped the favelas, conquered Brazil, signed with the biggest club in the world. And it still wasn't enough. The struggles. When talent isn't sufficient, second season. Third season. Robinho improved, scored more goals, had moments of genuine brilliance, but he never quite became what Madrid had hoped. Part of it was tactical. Real Madrid's system didn't maximize his strengths. They wanted structure. He wanted freedom. They needed defensive responsibility. He wanted to attack. Part of it was psychological. The weight of the number 10, the ghost of Figo, the constant comparisons to Ronaldinho, the Madrid fans who expected miracles every match. And part of it was just bad timing. Real Madrid in the mid-2000s was transitioning. The Galácticos era was ending. New players were coming. The team was rebuilding. Robinho was caught in the middle. Too expensive to be considered a prospect. Too inconsistent to be considered a star. He'd have great games where he'd look unstoppable, then disappear for weeks. The kind of inconsistency that drives coaches insane and fans to frustration. By 2008, the whispers started. Maybe Madrid should sell him. Maybe he'd be better somewhere else. Robinho heard those whispers, and they hurt more than any tackle ever could. The Manchester City move, billionaires and new beginnings, September 1st, 2008. Transfer deadline day. The last day clubs could buy players. Robinho was at home, unsure about his future. Madrid had made it clear they were willing to sell. Chelsea had expressed interest. Then his phone rang. Manchester City, a club that had just been bought by Sheikh Mansour, one of the richest men in the world. They wanted him. Would pay whatever it took. The offer, $32.5 million. A British transfer record, more than any English club had ever paid. Robinho had a choice. Stay at Madrid and fight for his place, or go to Manchester City and become the face of a revolution. He chose Manchester. Chose being wanted over being tolerated. Chose a fresh start over a struggle. The presentation was massive. Thousands of City fans celebrating, not because they'd won anything, but because they'd signed a Real Madrid player, because they were suddenly relevant. Robinho held up the light blue jersey. That smile back, that confidence restored. I'm here to help Manchester City become one of the best clubs in the world, he said. He believed it. So did they. Neither had any idea how complicated it would get. Manchester. The Golden Cage England was different, colder, faster, more physical. Less forgiving of flair players who didn't track back. Robinho was used to La Liga's technical style. The Premier League was war disguised as sport. Every match a physical battle, every tackle designed to hurt. His first season showed flashes. 14 goals, some spectacular performances. Moments where he'd remind everyone why Real Madrid had paid $24 million, but also inconsistency. Games where he'd be invisible. Matches where he'd get kicked repeatedly and withdraw into himself. Struggles adapting to the intensity. Manchester City fans loved him. He was their first superstar. Their proof that the club was changing. But love doesn't equal success. And Robinho wasn't built for the Premier League grind. He was an artist in a league that valued warriors. A dancer in a room full of fighters. Second season was worse. Injuries, poor form, rumors of unhappiness. The smile that had defined him started fading. By January 2010, just 16 months after the record transfer, Robinho was loaned to Santos FC, back to Brazil. Back to where it started. It was supposed to be temporary, a chance to rediscover his form, to remember why he loved football. It became permanent. He'd never return to Manchester City. The revolution he was supposed to lead, it happened without him. Manchester City would become a superpower, but Robinho wouldn't be part of it. AC Milan, the Italian Renaissance, August 2010. AC Milan signed Robinho, not as a superstar, as a reclamation project. A player with undeniable talent but questionable consistency. Italy suited him better. Serie A was slower, more tactical, allowed flair players room to breathe. For the first time since Santos, Robinho looked comfortable. He'd score incredible goals, perform skills that made San Siro erupt, form partnerships with Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Alexander Pato, Kaká 2010-2011 season, 14 goals, a Serie A title, his best form in years. Finally, it seemed, Robinho had found his place. A club that valued him, a league that suited his style, success without the crushing pressure. He was 27 years old, in his prime, with the world at his feet again, but darkness was waiting, and it would arrive in a nightclub on a January night in 2013. Everything that came before, the talent, The goals, the smiles, would soon mean nothing. The night that changed everything, 2010, 2012. The golden years in Milanic. Milan was Robinho's salvation. After the disappointments of Madrid and Manchester, Italy gave him something he'd lost: confidence. The 2010-2011 season was his best in years. Partnering with Zlatan Ibrahimovic up front, playing in a system that valued creativity over work rate, scoring goals that reminded people why he'd been called the next Pelé. 14 goals that season. A Scudetto, Serie A championship, his first major European trophy since arriving on the continent. At 26 years old, he was proving he wasn't just talent. He was a winner. The San Siro faithful adored him. Not the way Madrid fans had, with impossible expectations and quick judgment, but with genuine appreciation. He was their flair player, their entertainer, their reminder that football could still be beautiful. Off the pitch, he was settling into life in Milan, learning Italian, building friendships, dating, living the life of a successful footballer in one of Europe's most glamorous cities. Everything seemed perfect. But perfection is fragile, and one night can shatter everything. The Brazilian national team. Wearing the Amarelinha Wild Club success mattered. Nothing compared to representing Brazil. Wearing the yellow shirt, de seleção. Playing for a nation that worshipped football like religion. Robinho had been part of the national team since 2003, a fixture in the squad through multiple tournaments. 2 Copa America titles, the 2009 Confederations Cup, where he'd been named player of the tournament. That 2009 Confederations Cup was his peak with Brazil, playing alongside Kaká, Luis Fabiano, Maicon, destroying teams with technical brilliance, scoring crucial goals, being the player everyone hoped he'd become. Against the United States in the final, he'd been spectacular. Brazil won 3-2. Robinho had proven he could perform on the biggest stage when it mattered most. But that was 2009. By 2012, things were shifting. New players were emerging. Neymar, younger, hungrier, arguably more talented, was becoming Brazil's new golden boy. The torch was passing. Robinho was still selected, still valuable, but he wasn't the future anymore. He was the present. And in football, the present is always temporary. The 2014 World Cup was approaching. Brazil hosting. The pressure enormous. Robinho wanted to be part of it. Needed to prove he still mattered. But first, he had to get through one more season at Milan. One more winter in Italy. One more night that should have been forgettable but became unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. January 22nd, 2013. The night at AC Milan. A cold Tuesday night. Robinho and 5 friends went out to CO Cafe, a nightclub in the city center. Nothing unusual. Footballers went to clubs all the time. It was part of the lifestyle. Part of being young, rich, and famous. What happened that night would be disputed for years, investigated, tried in court, reported in newspapers across the world. But the basic facts were these. A young Albanian woman was at the club. She encountered Robinho and his group. According to her testimony, she was sexually assaulted by multiple members of the group in a private room. She reported it to police the next day. Robinho's version, given later in court, was different. He claimed everything was consensual, that nothing illegal happened, that this was a misunderstanding being blown out of proportion. The truth, whatever it was, launched an investigation that would take years to resolve. And in the meantime, Robinho continued playing football like nothing had happened. Because here's the thing about being famous. You can live in 2 worlds simultaneously. The public one where you're a hero, and the private one where investigations happen quietly, away from cameras. For 4 years, most people didn't know. Robinho kept playing, kept smiling, kept being the charismatic footballer everyone knew. But justice, however slow, was watching when a 2014. Career continues. Shadow grows, the investigation was ongoing. But Robinho's football career didn't stop. Can't stop! Football doesn't pause for off-field problems. His form at Milan started declining. Not dramatically, just gradually. Fewer goals, less impact, the magic dimming slightly. He was nearly 30, old for a player whose game relied on speed and agility. In 2014, he was loaned to Santos, again. A return to where it all started. But it wasn't the triumphant homecoming of 2010. It was a player running out of options in Europe. The 2014 World Cup happened. Brazil hosting, the biggest stage possible. Robinho wasn't selected. The dream of representing his nation in a home World Cup, gone. He watched from the sidelines as Brazil suffered the humiliating 7-1 loss to Germany. Watched Neymar become the face of Brazilian football. Watched his generation fail spectacularly. Maybe it was a blessing he wasn't part of it. Or maybe it was confirmation that his time had passed. After Santos, he bounced around. Guangzhou Evergrande in China. Atlético Mineiro back in Brazil. Sivasspor in Turkey. Istanbul Başakşehir. Each move a step down from the last. Each club smaller than the previous. The pattern was clear. A once great player in decline, accepting whatever opportunities remained. But the investigation? That was still active. Building evidence. Preparing a case. Moving through Italy's legal system with the speed of glaciers, but the inevitability of gravity. November 2017. The verdict Milan's Court of Appeal. November 23, 2017. 4 years after that night in CO Cafe. The verdict was delivered. Guilty. Sexual assault. 9 years in prison. The judge's statement was clear. The evidence supported the victim's testimony. The acts were violent and humiliating. The sentence reflected the severity of the crime. Robinho was in Brazil when the verdict came. He released a statement denying everything, claiming innocence, promising to appeal. His lawyers argued procedural issues, questioned the evidence, maintained his story hadn't changed, but the Italian court had spoken, and while Brazil doesn't extradite its citizens, the verdict had consequences. Contracts were terminated. Sponsorships disappeared. His reputation, already fading due to his declining play, was now destroyed for different reasons entirely. He was 33 years old. His career effectively over. Not because his legs gave out, not because he lost his skill, but because of that January night in 2013. The appeals. Fighting the inevitable. For years, Robinho fought the conviction. His lawyers filed appeals, argued technicalities, questioned translations of recorded conversations that had been used as evidence, claimed the trial was unfair. In 2020, Italy's Supreme Court upheld the conviction. No more appeals. The verdict was final. 9 years. If he ever set foot in a country with an extradition treaty with Italy, he'd be arrested. Robinho remained in Brazil, free in body but imprisoned by geography, unable to travel to most of the world. His passport effectively useless. He continued playing football in Brazil through 2020. Lower divisions. Teams that were willing to overlook the conviction. Fans who either didn't know or didn't care. But in January 2021, Santos FC, the club where he'd become a star, signed him for a third stint. The announcement was met with immediate backlash. Sponsors threatened to leave. Fans protested. Women's rights groups condemned the decision. Santos terminated his contract 3 days later. The dream of ending his career where it started. Of coming full circle, denied. Even in Brazil, even in the city that had made him famous, he was no longer welcome. 2022. Brazil begins enforcement for years. Brazil had protected Robinho through its non-extradition policy. But in 2022, things changed. Italy requested that Brazil enforce the sentence domestically. Under international law, if a country won't extradite its citizen, it can still enforce foreign court rulings within its borders. The Brazilian justice system reviewed the case. In 2023, a federal court ruled that yes, the Italian conviction should be recognized and enforced. Robinho's lawyers appealed. The case moved through Brazil's courts. But the walls were closing in. The freedom that geography had provided was disappearing. By 2024, the legal situation remained complex. Appeals ongoing, technical arguments being made. But the trajectory was clear. Eventually, somehow, justice would catch up. He was 40 years old, living in Brazil, unable to travel internationally, facing the possibility of actually serving time for a crime committed 11 years earlier. The career was long over. The reputation destroyed. The legacy forever tainted. From the next Pelé to a convicted criminal, From dancing past defenders to unable to leave his own country. From millions of fans to sponsors running away, this was the fall, complete and irreversible. The defenders and the critics. Even now, Robinho has supporters. People who claim he's innocent, that he was targeted because he was famous, that the conviction was unjust. Some Brazilian fans still defend him. Point to his football achievements. Separate the player from the person. Argue that everyone deserves a presumption of innocence regardless of what courts say. His family stands by him. His wife, his children, they maintain his innocence. They claim he's been wronged by a system that didn't understand the situation, but the victim's advocates tell a different story. They point to the evidence presented in court. The recorded phone conversations where Robinho talked about that night in ways that contradicted his testimony. The testimony of witnesses. The years of investigation that led to conviction. And they ask, why should fame protect someone from consequences? Why should football ability excuse criminal behavior? Why should a childhood in poverty justify adult crimes? These are questions with no easy answers. But the court had made its decision. And history had made its judgment. The career statistics. Numbers can't tell the whole story. Looking purely at football, Robinho's career was remarkable. Santos FC 2002-2005, 2010, 2014, 2015. Over 100 appearances. Multiple titles, Real Madrid 2005-2008, 94 appearances. 23 goals, Manchester City 2008-2010, 41 appearances. 14 goals, AC Milan 2010-2014, 100 appearances. 26 goals, Brazil national team 2003-2011, 100 caps, 28 goals, 2 Copa America titles, Confederations Cup MVP by any measure, a successful career. Not legendary like Pelé, not transcendent like Ronaldinho, but successful. A player who'd achieved more than 99% of professional footballers ever do. But statistics don't tell you about that night in January 2013. Don't explain why a talented player's career ended. Not with retirement, but with criminal conviction. Don't capture the complexity of a person who could bring joy to millions through football while allegedly causing harm to an individual. Numbers are clean. Life is messy. And Robinho's life was very, very messy. The sponsors who disappeared. When you're a rising star, everyone wants to be associated with you. Nike, Pepsi, EA Sports. Brands line up to pay millions for your endorsement. When you're convicted of sexual assault, those same brands vanish overnight. Robinho's sponsorships evaporated after the 2017 verdict. Contracts terminated. Advertisements pulled. His image, once valuable, became toxic. This is how modern justice works for celebrities. The court punishes legally. The market punishes financially. Public opinion punishes socially. He went from earning millions to earning nothing from endorsements. From being a marketable global icon to someone brands wouldn't touch with a 100-foot pole. Football could be separated from character for a while. But eventually, consequences arrive. And when they do, they're comprehensive. The generation that watched him. For people who grew up watching football in the 2000s, Robinho represents something complicated. We remember the joy he played with, the incredible goals, the skills that made us try to replicate them in parks and streets. He made football look fun, made it look easy, made it look like art. Those memories don't disappear just because of a criminal conviction. The goals still happened. The Copa America titles still count. The moments of magic were real, but they're tainted now, complicated, impossible to celebrate without acknowledging what came after. This is the tragedy of heroes who fall. They don't just destroy their own lives. They complicate the memories of everyone who admired them. They turn nostalgia into discomfort. Young players don't model themselves after Robinho anymore. His name isn't spoken with reverence. He's not a legend to aspire to. He's a cautionary tale, a reminder that talent without character means nothing. That success without ethics is temporary, and maybe that's the only lesson worth taking from his story. The woman nobody talks about in all the discussions about Robinho's career. His achievements, his legal troubles. One person is rarely centered, the victim. Her name wasn't widely published. Her identity protected by Italian law. But she was a real person who reported a crime, participated in a years-long investigation, testified in court, and watched as the person she accused continued living a famous life while her own remained disrupted. The court believed her. The evidence supported her. The conviction stood through multiple appeals, but in the court of public opinion, especially in Brazil where football players are revered, she was often dismissed. Called a liar, accused of seeking money or attention, subjected to the same treatment victims worldwide face when they accuse powerful men. This is the part of the story that gets forgotten when we talk about rise and fall narratives. There are real people harmed, real lives changed, real trauma inflicted. Robinho's fall wasn't just about him losing his career. It was about justice, however delayed, for someone who'd been harmed. That matters. That should matter more than nostalgia for brilliant goals. The question nobody can answer. If Robinho had never gone to that nightclub in January 2013, how would his career have ended? Would he have made Brazil's 2014 World Cup squad? Probably not. He was already being phased out. Would he have continued at Milan? Maybe for another season or two before age caught up? Would he be remembered as a legend? Probably not. His career, while successful, never quite reached the heights expected. He was very good, never quite great, but he'd be remembered fondly. As a talented player who brought joy, as the smiling Brazilian who danced with the ball, as someone who made football beautiful for a few years. Instead, he's remembered as a cautionary tale, as someone whose poor decisions destroyed everything he'd built, as a reminder that talent doesn't excuse behavior. We'll never know what his legacy could have been, because the legacy we have is the one he chose through his actions. And that legacy is permanently stained. The Prisoner Who Walks. Free 2018-2021, living in legal limbo after. The conviction was upheld. Robinho existed in a strange twilight zone, legally guilty but physically free, a convicted felon who could walk the streets of São Paulo without handcuffs. Brazil's constitution prohibits extraditing its citizens. It's a protection designed to prevent political persecution. But it also means that Brazilians convicted abroad can return home and avoid serving time, as long as they stay within Brazilian borders. For Robinho, this meant freedom with invisible walls. He could go anywhere in Brazil, but the moment he stepped on a plane to Europe, North America, or most of Asia, he'd be arrested. His world had shrunk from global to national, from stadiums across 3 continents to a single country where his name still carried weight, but increasingly less of it. He tried to continue playing football, joined clubs in Brazil's lower divisions, but every signing brought controversy. Protests from women's rights groups, sponsors threatening to withdraw, media questioning why any club would employ a convicted sex offender. Most clubs eventually decided the trouble wasn't worth it. The talent that had once made him invaluable was now a liability. The smile that had charmed millions was now associated with a crime. Football, which had been his salvation from the favelas, his identity for 35 years, was slipping away. Not because his legs couldn't carry him anymore, but because nobody wanted to be associated with what he'd become. January 2021, the Santos FC announced they were bringing Robinho back. A third stint, coming full circle. The club where he'd become a star, where Pelé had played, was giving him another chance. The announcement was made on a Monday. By Wednesday, the entire deal collapsed. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Santos's main sponsors, Brastemp, Philco, Umbro, threatened to terminate their contracts. The club's own fan groups organized protests. Women marched outside the stadium with signs reading, "Santos doesn't support rapists." Social media erupted. Brazilian journalists called it shameful. International press covered it as a scandal. The club's president, who'd approved the signing, faced calls to resign. Santos tried to defend the decision. "Everyone deserves a second chance," they said. The conviction was in Italy, not Brazil, but the court of public opinion had spoken. And in 2021, unlike in 2013 or even 2017, people were less willing to separate the player from the person, less willing to ignore criminal convictions because someone could dribble a ball. 3 days after announcing him, Santos terminated the contract. Robinho would not wear their jersey again, would not end his career where it started, would not get the fairy tale ending he'd imagined. He released a statement claiming he was being persecuted, that people didn't understand the full story, that his innocence would eventually be proven. But nobody was listening anymore. Not to explanations, not to appeals to nostalgia, not to reminders of past glory. The door had closed, and this time, it wasn't opening again. March 2023, Brazil's Supreme Court decision. For years, Robinho had been safe in Brazil, protected by the Constitution, living free while legally guilty. But Italy wasn't giving up. They formally requested that Brazil enforce the sentence domestically. If you won't extradite him, make him serve his time in Brazilian prison. The case reached Brazil's Superior Court of Justice. The legal question was complex. Should Brazil honor a foreign court's conviction? Did Italian due process meet Brazilian standards? Was the evidence sufficient? In March 2023, the court ruled yes. The Italian conviction should be recognized and enforced in Brazil. Robinho could appeal to Brazil's Supreme Court, the highest authority. But the writing was on the wall. The protection that geography had provided was eroding. His lawyers filed motion after motion, questioned translations, argued that recorded phone conversations were taken out of context, claimed procedural irregularities in the Italian trial, but the momentum had shifted. What had once seemed impossible, a famous Brazilian footballer actually serving time, was becoming probable, maybe even inevitable. He was 39 years old, no longer playing professionally, no longer earning significant income, facing the very real possibility of spending years in prison. The fall was complete. From the next Pelé to a man desperately trying to avoid the consequences of his actions. The recorded conversation that changed everything throughout the trial and appeals. One piece of evidence haunted Robinho more than anything else. A phone conversation recorded by Italian police. In the conversation, intercepted legally as part of the investigation, Robinho talked with a friend about the night in question. The exact words have been disputed, translated, and retranslated between Portuguese and Italian, but the essence was damning. He acknowledged what happened, laughed about the situation, made comments that directly contradicted his later claims of innocence and consent. His lawyers argued the conversation was misunderstood, that Portuguese slang doesn't translate cleanly, that he was joking or speaking hypothetically, that context was missing. But prosecutors said the conversation was clear, that it proved consciousness of guilt, that it undermined every defense he'd offered. Courts agreed. The conversation, combined with victim testimony and other evidence, formed the basis of the conviction. Robinho has never fully explained that conversation, never adequately addressed why, if he was innocent, he would talk about the incident in ways that suggested guilt. Some things can't be explained away. Some evidence speaks for itself, and sometimes a person's own words become the most powerful testimony against them. November 2024, the final appeal. Denied. Brazil's Supreme Court made its decision. The Italian conviction would be enforced. Robinho would serve his 9-year sentence in Brazilian prison. His lawyers exhausted every option. Filed emergency motions, requested stays of execution, argued constitutional violations, all denied. The court's message was clear. Criminal convictions, even foreign ones, have consequences. Fame doesn't exempt you. Talent doesn't protect you. Brazilian citizenship means you serve your time in Brazil, but you still serve it. Robinho was ordered to turn himself in. The date was set. The prison designated. The countdown began. He gave an interview days before reporting. Still maintaining innocence. Still claiming persecution, still unable or unwilling to take responsibility. I made mistakes in my life, he said, but not this one. I didn't do what they say I did. But the legal system, both Italian and Brazilian, had concluded otherwise. And belief, no matter how sincere, doesn't override evidence and due process. At 40 years old, Robinho faced the reality he'd been avoiding for 11 years. He was going to prison. Not in Italy, where he'd never return, but in Brazil, his homeland, the country he thought would always protect him, Geography had delayed justice, but it couldn't prevent it. The legacy question. Can we separate art from artist? This is the question every Robinho discussion eventually reaches. Can we appreciate his football while condemning his crime? Some argue yes, that the goals he scored happened regardless of what came after, that his contributions to Santos, to Milan, to Brazil's national team remain real, that we can admire the player while despising the person. Others argue no, that character and talent are inseparable, that celebrating someone's achievements while ignoring their crimes sends a message that success excuses behavior, that victims deserve more than having their abusers' skills praised. There's no easy answer, and maybe that's the point. Maybe the discomfort we feel when discussing Robinho is appropriate. Maybe legends shouldn't be simple. Football history is full of complicated figures, players who were brilliant on the pitch but deeply flawed off it. Robinho isn't unique in that regard, but he might be unique in how completely his off-field actions destroyed his legacy. Most players with criminal issues still have defenders who emphasize their sporting achievements. Robinho has far fewer, perhaps because his crime wasn't a moment of poor judgment or a single mistake. It was, according to courts, a violent assault. And society, even football-obsessed society, draws lines, has standards, demands accountability. Or perhaps it's simpler. Talent fades, but consequences endure, and Robinho's consequences caught up with him. The generation lost young Brazilian footballers once aspired to be like Robinho, to dribble like him, to smile like him, to escape poverty through football genius like he did. Now coaches use him as a warning. Don't be like Robinho, they tell teenagers, not referring to his football style, but to his life choices. His inability to handle fame responsibly, his fall from grace. This might be his lasting impact. Not the Copa America titles or the Champions League goals, but the cautionary tale. The reminder that football success means nothing if you destroy your character in the process. A generation of Brazilian kids will grow up knowing Robinho's name, but not for the reasons he'd hoped. Not as a hero. As a warning, that's the cruelest part of his story. He escaped the favelas, made his family wealthy, achieved dreams that seemed impossible, and still ended up a prisoner, legally and in his own legacy. Success without wisdom. Talent without character. Achievement without integrity. These are the ingredients of tragedy, and Robinho's story is undeniably tragic. The alternative timeline. Imagine a different story. Same childhood, same talent, same journey from São Vicente to Santos to Europe. But on January 22nd, 2013, he makes different choices. Doesn't go to that nightclub, or goes but leaves early, or makes 1,000 different decisions that don't lead to criminal charges. In that timeline, his career continues. Maybe he plays until 35, returns to Santos for a proper farewell, gets a testimonial match. His number retired with honor, he becomes a coach, or a pundit, uses his name and experience to help young Brazilian players navigate European football, stays involved in the sport that defined him. His legacy is clear. Incredibly talented player who never quite reached Pelé levels but had a successful career. Someone remembered fondly, celebrated appropriately, honored by the clubs he represented. That timeline was possible, available, within reach, but it's not the timeline we're in. And alternate histories don't matter. Only the actual one does. Robinho made choices. Those choices had consequences. And those consequences destroyed everything. We can imagine what might have been, but we have to live with what is. The woman who moved on. While Robinho's life unraveled, the woman at the center of the case moved forward. Her identity protected, her life private, she gave testimony, participated in the investigation, endured years of legal proceedings, watched as the person she accused continued playing football, earning millions, living seemingly without consequences, until he didn't. The conviction validated her, proved that the Italian justice system believed her. That evidence supported her account. That she wasn't lying, wasn't seeking attention, wasn't any of the things she'd been accused of. But validation doesn't erase trauma. Justice doesn't undo harm. A court ruling doesn't give back what was taken. She likely lives with the impact of that night every day. While we debate Robinho's legacy, she deals with hers. While we discuss whether to separate player from person, she lives with the knowledge of what happened. This is the part of the story that gets minimized when we focus on the fallen star. The real human cost. The person whose life was forever altered not by poor career decisions or legal technicalities, but by violence. If Robinho's story teaches anything, it should be this. Actions have victims. Crimes have costs, and those costs are carried by real people long after the headlines fade. Her name isn't in this documentary, but her experience is the reason it exists. 25. The present Robinho is in prison, serving his sentence in Brazil. The man who once danced past defenders now walks prison yards. The player who earned millions now lives on whatever inmates receive. His family visits when they can. His children growing up with a father behind bars. His wife standing by him despite everything. Loyalty that might be admirable or tragic depending on your perspective. Former teammates rarely speak about him. When asked, they give diplomatic answers. He was talented. I wish things had been different, carefully avoiding taking sides or defending the indefensible. Santos FC's museum has his jersey on display, but without the prominence once given. A piece of history that the club acknowledges but doesn't celebrate. Present but not honored. His Wikipedia page lists his achievements. 100 caps for Brazil, 28 goals. Copa America winner. Confederations Cup MVP, Champions League veteran, Serie A champion. But it also lists the conviction, the sentence, the fall. Because history records everything, the good and the bad, the talent and the crime. This is Robinho's legacy now. Not just what he achieved, but what he destroyed. Not just the goals he scored, but the person he harmed. Not just the player he was, but the man he became. The uncomfortable truth. Here's what nobody wants to say, but everyone knows. Robinho could have lived like a king for the rest of his life. His Santos career alone had made him wealthy enough to never work again. Add Real Madrid, Manchester City, Milan. He'd earned tens of millions. He could have retired at 30. Moved back to Brazil, built a beautiful home, raised his children in comfort. Lived the dream he'd had as a kid in São Vicente. Instead, he's in prison. Not because life was unfair, not because the system persecuted him, but because of choices he made. That's the uncomfortable part. We want tragic stories to have external villains. Cruel fate, bad circumstances, unfair systems. But sometimes the villain is the hero. Sometimes the person who ruins your life is you. Sometimes talent isn't enough because character matters more. Robinho had everything, lost everything, and has only himself to blame. That's not a satisfying narrative. It's just the truth. The final question: in 50 years, how will Robinho be remembered? Will new generations know him at all? Will his name come up in football history books? Will highlights of his skills still circulate on whatever replaces YouTube? Probably, but with an asterisk, with context. With the explanation of what happened after the magic ended, he'll be remembered as talented. Definitely. You can't fake the goals he scored or the skills he possessed, but he'll also be remembered as cautionary, as an example of potential wasted, of talent overshadowed by crime, of a legacy destroyed not by injuries or age, but by choices. He could have been great, people will say. If only. But there is no if only. There's only what happened. And what happened was tragedy. Not the kind we pity, but the kind we condemn. Robinho was given gifts most people never receive. Physical talent, opportunity, wealth, fame, a platform to inspire millions, and he squandered it all. Not gradually. Not through bad luck, through actions that a court determined were criminal and violent. That's his legacy. Talent and shame. Skill and crime. Potential and waste. The samba king who fell not from the throne but through it, into darkness of his own making. Epilogue. The boy from São Vicente, somewhere in São Vicente, in the same favelas where Robinho learned to play, kids still kick footballs on broken streets. They still dream of escape, of stadiums and fame, of becoming the next great Brazilian star. Their parents probably tell them about Robinho, about the local boy who made it, who played for Real Madrid and Milan, who wore Brazil's yellow shirt 100 times. But they probably also tell them the rest, about the choices that destroyed everything, about talent that wasn't enough, about the importance of character alongside skill. Those kids will create their own stories, make their own choices, build their own legacies. Some will succeed, some will fail. Some will face temptations and challenges we can't imagine, but hopefully, they'll remember Robinho's story. Not just the beginning, the magic and joy and success, but the middle and the end too. The crime, the conviction, the prison sentence, and hopefully they'll choose differently, because that's the only value left in Robinho's story. Not inspiration, but warning. Not aspiration, but caution. He showed the world how high talent can take you, and how far poor choices can make you fall, from the favelas to Real Madrid to prison, from the next Pelé to a convicted felon, from millions of fans to a cell in Brazil. This is the story of Robinho, not the one he wanted written, but the one he created through his choices, the samba king who lost his crown. The dancer who forgot that skill without character is just performance. The legend who became a lesson, and the lesson is simple. Talent opens doors, but character determines whether you stay in the room or get thrown out. Robinho got thrown out, and the door locked behind him.